this talk is really part of a theme that your guys' benefits package team put together, referred to as the Year of Living Healthy or Healthy Living. And if you go to your benefits website, it gives you more information. I think each month is going to have a different theme. This month had financial health theme. This March, which I don't think it's posted yet, is going to be based on nutrition. So each month, in response to that Google Guys survey that went out, looking for people to enhance sort of their work-life balance and state of well-being, they've launched this Year of Healthy Living. And so anyway, that's why we're going to kind of start off with more of a nutrition talk, since that's the theme for March. Specifically me for nutrition, sort of why to give a nutrition talk. I am not a nutritionist. I practice internal medicine, so I take care of adults all day. But I can tell you the vast majority of what I do all day is related to people's poor lifestyle choices. And nutrition is probably one of the areas people make the poorest choices in. So, for me, it's a natural consequence of almost everything I do. Food is clearly a huge part of the culture here at Google, so I think it's important that everybody kind of learns how to manage themselves in this setting, since just about any time of day, anything you want is here and ready to go. So I think that's also another big piece. The other thing that's kind of interesting is that, again, in my practice, if I boil down almost every concern that someone calls my office with, I'd say 90% of it boils down to, do I have cancer? And do I have a heart disease? So, is this ache cancer? Am I having chest pain? Is it related to I'm almost everything worry-wise, not necessarily stated up front, relates to, am I dying of cancer, or is this going to be a heart attack, or am I likely to have a heart attack? So heart disease and cancer are always on people's minds. And again, nutrition plays a huge role in the prevention, modification of risk factors for that. So again, it's just a huge part of what I do every day, so it ties in. Although I must say, I don't get a ton of time to counsel people that much about nutrition because of how constricted my time frame is at work. And that's just a whole nother talk on primary care problems. So anyway, I would again describe myself as a food moderate. I will never preach an extreme in any aspect of medical care. There are very few extremes that are sustainable over a long period of time. People try extreme diets, good and bad. They don't work, they don't last, and they usually have no consequence that's lasting. So what I hope this is, in a very brief period of time, is just some key bullet points that you should be able to take forward and use anywhere, anytime to kind of guide your own nutritional choices, okay? So, what's the whole point? If you want to kind of get down to just your own personal needs, some of the health benefits of eating well, you feel better. If I sit down for breakfast and have a stack of pancakes with syrup and butter and try and go to work, probably by about 10:30 in the morning, I'm kind of getting a little woozy in the head, having a hard time concentrating, kind of feeling sluggish, wishing I was laying on the couch taking a nap somewhere. So again, just how you eat, how you approach eating generally kind of guides how you feel almost hour to hour. Again, not knowing that as a young kid, I think we all kind of indulge in different foods, not necessarily fruits and vegetables, and it dictates a lot of your ability to concentrate, think, be alert, have good energy, especially heading into the afternoon. We all get a little sleepy and drowsy in the afternoon. So again, just in general, eating well, you generally feel better. Maintaining ideal body weight. Again, I can't overemphasize that. Maintaining ideal body weight will guard against the other things that people worry about: heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, a whole host of medical problems that, as your body weight or BMI, body mass index, climbs, so will your list of medical problems. There's just no doubt that those things correlate tightly, and I see it every day. And then certainly looking good in bathing suit's fun. So you can approach this or look at what I see every day. And our country, which has the most abundant food supply in the entire world, suffers from this by far more than the other. So if I had to kind of cone down basic fundamentals of nutrition and put it on one slide, this would be it, okay? So if I was just going to give some very brief bullet points, and we'll go into these in more detail. Eat more brightly colored fruits and vegetables. You know, my kids in kindergarten learn to bite bright, okay? So they're teaching young children in elementary school, going back 14 years now, my kids are teenagers, eat foods that are brightly colored. And we'll talk about what's the point of that anyway. I mean, it seems somewhat obvious or intuitive, but teaching kids to see a variety of color on their plate. In fact, they taught them, look at your crayon box and see if you can find the colors of your crayon box on your plate every night, okay? If everything on your plate is this color, mom and dad need to beef up their abilities. So that's a key piece, and we'll talk about that. Reduce your intake of saturated and animal fats, okay? Animals produce saturated fat. Butter, lard, most of the fat that comes on meat is very high in saturated fat, and we'll talk about why that's problematic. And when you have to trade out, because fat's an important part of bodily function, we want you to choose fruit, vegetable, or fish fat. So fish being sort of the one exception, okay? And I'll also, when we get down to talking more about fats, tropical oils, even though they're plants, are also exceptions. Coconut oil, solid at room temperature, very high in saturated fat, okay? But for the most part, olive oils, canola oils, we'll talk about those, very healthy in terms of diet. Limiting sweets and salts, and I'll, again, kind of give you a few exceptions to that. There are some good sweets to engage in, and there's good reasons to engage them. Drinking alcohol, not in adoration, but moderation, okay? And I think everyone's probably aware about the benefits not only of red wine, but probably that extrapolates to all forms of alcohol, and we'll talk about that. And then portion control or serving control. That being probably one of my favorite topics to preach upon, because I'm bad at it. And until I really gave this talk, I don't think I really had a full understanding, because I think you're thrown ounces and sizes and cups, and I mean, I don't know what an ounce of anything looks like. I mean, so hopefully give you some guidelines that make it easy so that when you kind of do your food math at the end of the day, you have a pretty good sense of making good estimations on portions. So, food pyramids, nice tools that dietary councils put out, our government puts out, just to give you a sense of guidelines about food groups, servings per food group that you should take in each day. This is somewhat old-fashioned by dietary standards, okay? So this sort of is an older food pyramid with the idea that, again, fats, oils, sweets are at the tip of the pyramid. They need to be in smaller quantities, and we'll talk about what that means. Your milk group and your meat group, again, 2 to 4 servings per day, and we'll talk again what a serving means. Your fruits and vegetables, again, more plentiful, this 3 to 5 servings per day. And then your grains, breads, cereals, group in 6 to 11 servings per day. The reason I like this is I think it's easy to remember, and the way I sort of simplify this is I think of it as 2, 4, and 6. Okay, so 2 from your meat and your milk group, 4 from your fruit and vegetable group, and 6 from your whole grain group. And that doesn't mean there aren't exceptions, because a lot of this is based on, are you male, female, are you a growing child, are you an obese adult? So, but in general, if you kind of stick with those basic principles, I think it's easy to remember. And I'll kind of go forward again and explain what servings are and why I think this older pyramid, which isn't that out of date, but there's a newer one that the government likes to promote. I think this one's easy to remember. This is the new one, okay? This is the one that they tout as being the accurate one. I find it very confusing. I mean, I look at this and I close my eyes and try and memorize it, and I can't frankly tell you what each of these colors mean unless I had all these tables here down below. So I think it's well-intentioned. I think the amounts of foods they're describing are certainly accurate, but I don't think anybody can commit this to memory. You know, I mean, it's just you're standing there, you're getting ready to serve stuff. 6 ounces of a grain. What is 6 ounces of a grain? I have no idea. So again, they make good points. They talk about, again, limiting oils, getting regular exercises, more fruits and vegetables and grains, less meat and milk. But again, I think it's confusing. There's too much information there. And again, if you're supposed to take that forward into the food choices you make each day, I don't see how it helps. So that's my little criticism there. There are food pyramids for everybody. If you like to eat kosher, if you like to eat Chinese, if you're purely vegetarian, if you're a vegan, there are food pyramids that fit every person, every situation, okay? And what I like about the Mediterranean-style food pyramid specifically, besides liking Mediterranean food, specifically, a couple key points here. Meat is mentioned as a monthly foodstuff. I mean, that's amazing. I can't imagine anyone in our society eating meat once a month, okay? But that's what they emphasize. And then weekly, fish and poultry. Not daily, weekly. It shows up occasionally and in small amounts. And then daily, emphasizing cheese, yogurt, olive oil, fruits, vegetables, pastas, whole grains. And again, the basis of all of this too, Europeans move, okay? They walk, they don't ride around on their cars. I guess they drive their Vespas everywhere, but for the most part, they move. And so daily activity, again, not being necessarily a nutritional piece, but a huge part of a Mediterranean diet. And the other piece I like a lot is a little wine every day didn't hurt anybody, okay? So again, pretty much a food pyramid to fit everybody. And if you go to Google Images and type in food pyramids, it goes on for pages. I mean, you choose how you like to live, and there's a food pyramid to guide you. Okay, so what's the point of bright fruits and vegetables? And again, not that you all don't know what they look like, but I just grabbed some stuff out of my fridge, went shopping this weekend. I'm lucky I have kids who eat well, so I don't have to pander to a bunch of weird picky eaters. But specifically, bright fruits and vegetables. Obviously, this is healthier than iceberg lettuce. Iceberg lettuce is the second most consumed vegetable in our country, only preceded by, anybody know? Potato. Yes, white potatoes, our favorite vegetable, you know, cooked in any fashion, okay? So very nutrient rich, A's, C's, folic acid, calcium, you name it. The darker it is, the healthier it is, okay? So what do brightly colored fruits and vegetables have? They have phytochemicals. These phytochemicals are lycopene. Tomatoes, high in lycopene. In fact, concentrated tomatoes, even higher in lycopene. That's why ketchup gets such a good rap. Ketchup actually has higher lycopene concentrations than a fresh tomato. So high in lycopene. Carotene, obviously, vitamin A, important. All the brightly colored fruits and vegetables, again, also high in lycopene. The emphasis and important of those, A, C, lycopene, carotene, grouped together, they're referred to as antioxidants. And I'm sure you've heard that term thrown around a lot. Simply put, antioxidants, which are concentrated and nutrient-rich in these brightly colored fruits and vegetables, help scavenge up free radicals. Free radicals are felt to be responsible for cellular damage, often at the DNA level. And cellular damage at the DNA level can lead to cancer syndromes, heart disease, inflammatory states like arthritis, early cataract formation. So lack of those antioxidants can create those natural disease problems. So that's a huge piece. High in antioxidants, vitamins. You don't have to take a multivitamin every day if you eat that kind of food. The other huge benefit that fruits and vegetables have that really a lot of other foodstuffs don't is fiber, okay? And a lot of people think fiber's just there to help you poop, okay? There's more to it than that. Fiber is, you can sort of break it down into what we call soluble and insoluble fiber. And you don't have to worry about what's in fruits and vegetables because there's a little bit of each in all fruits and vegetables. Soluble fiber, if you swirl it in water, turns into a clear gel, okay? So when you ingest soluble fiber into the stomach, it helps bind up fatty acids, so a lot of the saturated fats in our diet will be bound up by soluble fiber. It slows the emptying of our stomachs, and when digestion is slowed down, you get less surge of glucose, so again, it helps regulate glucose metabolism. It slows the rapid dumping into the GI tract, which again can create a lot of bloating and pain for some people. So foods that are naturally high in soluble fiber: oats, psyllium, flaxseed, all those foods that again add bulk to the food stuff that you're eating, slow metabolism, help absorb fatty acids out of our food that we're also ingesting. So in general, kind of a food sponge. Insoluble fiber pretty much passes through our GI tract intact, okay? And that's what's adding bulk to the stool. It draws water into the colon. By doing that, it adds bulk, which avoids constipation, which is a disease of Western societies. The other consequence of chronic constipation: hemorrhoids and diverticuli, which again are only problems in Western societies. Diverticuli are these benign little outpouchings you get in the lower colon that can inflame, rupture, lead to abscesses, emergency type surgery. So again, I see a lot of that every day. Again, you don't see those in third world countries where their diets are rich in raw foods, high fiber foods. It's truly diseases of highly refined diets. So, takeaway message on bright fruits and vegetables: high in antioxidants, high in fiber, high in vitamins. That's the benefit of those. Okay, so reducing your intake of animal fats while balancing out increasing your intake of fruits and fish oils. So again, just to emphasize, I think everybody knows this: olive oil, liquid at room temperature, okay? Animal fat, butter, solid at room temperature. So if for nothing else, for illustrative purposes, imagine this is the stuff that plugs up your arteries, this is the stuff that doesn't, okay? So when you see a fat that is solid at room temperature, it generally is a saturated fat. It has more hydrogen bonds that lead it to be solid, okay? So again, most of those, with the exception of tropical oils like coconut oil, tend to be the high saturated fats. So when you make a fat choice, choose olive oil, monounsaturated canola oil, avocado oil, peanut oil, those things that sit in your cupboard liquid at room temperature. And again, the benefits of that being that when you consume not only less of this and more of this, that helps lower your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol we want to see down in terms of discouraging heart disease. Olive oil also has an anti-inflammatory effect, often felt to help retard certain types of arthritides. But generally, it's kind of a heart healthy issue, and still, since heart disease is the leading cause of death of men and women in this country, that's why it gets a big push, okay? Now, fish fat, a lot of people go, what kind of fish? Is sole just as good as salmon? The issue with fish is fish that have to live in deep sea, freezing cold waters have to maintain a high body fat content to survive. And that fat is rich in alpha-omega fatty acids. Again, high antioxidant activity. It creates sort of an anticoagulant type of activity where platelets tend to want to stick less well together. So again, all those things tending to promote a healthy heart, discouraging formation of plaque in coronary arteries. So, limiting sweets and salt. Well, that's boring. Nobody wants to hear that, okay? And the whole point is, dessert is packed with calories. It's usually packed with fat. All the lovely desserts that are sitting in there each day, they're not made with olive oil, okay? They taste good, not only in your mouth, but later, because they're high in fat, they're satisfying, that sugar tastes good. I mean, I'd say for most, with a few rare exceptions, most people have a little penchant for a sweet tooth. And that's fine, as long as it's done in moderation, meaning rather than daily, maybe passing through the dessert counter on a weekly basis and then keeping portions under control. But the one exception I'm going to talk about in terms of sweets is chocolate, okay? chocolate, specifically dark chocolate, okay? Dark chocolate, unlike milk chocolate, is much higher in cocoa content. And cocoa is very high in flavonoids. Flavonoids, again, fall into that antioxidant group. Flavonoids have actually been studied. In fact, they've taken people and had them consume high amounts of dark chocolate versus a group that consumed just white chocolate, which really isn't chocolate at all. Their blood pressure went down. Insulin resistance, which is part of the mechanism for diabetes, went away. LDL cholesterol went down while their HDL, good cholesterol, went up. Some of that's a little hard to believe since it's all made with cocoa butter, but nonetheless, an ounce and a half of chocolate is actually considered a heart-healthy, nutrition-sound recommendation. So if you have a sweet tooth and you like chocolate, pick the dark stuff. It's better for you, okay? Salt, again, salt's usually not a problem unless you have high blood pressure, and high blood pressure is rampant in this country. Most people don't know they have it. Some people are more salt sensitive than others, and salt, generally a low salt diet is trying to keep it below 2,000 milligrams per day. Salt adds up quick in our food supply. If you buy anything packaged, pre-prepared, in a box, a bag, it's going to be generally fairly high in salt. Most things that are labeled, though, you can check salt content. Salt's a preservative, it's a food enhancer, it's been around for millenniums, it'll continue to be there. Mostly an issue in terms of people with high blood pressure, okay? So, alcohol. My husband bit off big when red wine became a heart-healthy thing to do, okay? So, but truthfully, alcohol, probably in any of its form, beer, wine, grain alcohol, and we'll talk about what a serving of that means, is probably not a bad thing in terms of your cardiovascular system. It, again, helps lower LDL cholesterol while raising HDL cholesterol. It helps lower blood pressure, again, if you don't consume excessive amounts of it. It makes, again, your platelets less sticky. Platelets responsible for clotting. So again, probably a lot of complex things we don't understand, especially since wine has over 200 active chemicals in it. It's a very complex food, so not all of it's understood. But red wine specifically is high in an antioxidant called resveratrol, and that's the same active ingredient that's in red grapes. So for teetotalers that don't necessarily want to take up alcohol, Concord grape juice probably offers similar health benefits, okay? So probably goes beyond the ethanol in a wine, probably has a lot to do with sort of the grape and grape skins and the pre-wine formation. So again, if at all, again, we don't encourage anyone to start drinking, but if you do choose to drink, a serving for a man, okay, 2 to 3 drinks is considered normal. And what a drink is a beer, okay, which I think most people know what a can of beer looks like, a 6-ounce pour of red wine. So if you got those big fishbowl wine glasses, you can't fill it to the top. 6-ounce pour is a serving of wine, and 1.5 ounces of grain alcohol is considered a serving, okay? Women, because of our body fat percentage and muscle percentage, 1 to 2 is considered okay. 2 to 3, too much for women. 3 to 4, too much for men, okay? Then you start to lose some of the health benefits and gain some of the liver toxic issues. So anyway, portion control. Again, sort of my favorite piece in the last part and sort of the bullet points here. The one thing I kind of want to emphasize is, and again, I think everyone in this room's old enough. Anybody remember what your plates looked like when you grew up as a kid? Okay. This is one of the plates I grew up with. That was our dinner plate. And I think that's probably average size for what most people ate their supper off with their family. This is probably a salad plate today, okay? This is the dinner plate that I've been using for 21 years of marriage, which, you know, that was a long time ago, but we still have the same dinner plates. They're bigger, and we fill them up. My boys especially load these plates up. There's not enough room on this plate for them, Okay, so that's just one little piece of how portions have changed over the last 30, 40 years and what leads to some of our overnutrition problems in this country. So one little piece there. Have you guys seen Super Size Me? Yeah. It's a great little documentary piece. Again, it takes nutrition to an extreme, but I think it makes some great points about everything that we consume in this country has grown, and so have we. Okay, so it correlates pretty tightly. So let's talk about what a serving or a portion means real briefly. Okay, so grains. So if you remember, if you go back to the old food pyramid, grains sit at the bottom. 6 servings, 6 to 11 servings is considered a normal part of a healthy 2,000 calorie day diet. Okay, so you go to Toshi's Teriyaki, you think you're having a healthy lunch. Well, Toshi's Teriyaki's got that big little styrofoam bin that's loaded up with rice for a family of 5, half a chicken, and there's your lunch, okay? So really, how many servings of that are you consuming? A general rule, if you want to think about it, a serving of pasta, rice, some sort of grain, okay, is generally considered half a cup. That's about what an ice cream scoop is, okay? So if you scoop up that much rice and put it on your plate, that's a serving. So if you want more, that's 2 servings, okay? One massive mound is not 1 serving, okay? Just because it all sits there collectively with itself. So generally, cooked pastas, rices, half a cup. Think of an ice cream scooper. Piece of bread, I think everybody knows what a piece of bread looks like, and crackers, 6 crackers, you can imagine sort of fitting on a piece of bread, okay? So, when you think about grains, think half a cup, or an ice cream scoop. Okay, fruits. Fruits are good, but, you know, consuming too much fruit is too many calories. So again, if you want to think about a serving of a fruit, talks about a tennis ball, okay? Look at the fruit that we have in our grocery stores. I don't think I've seen an apple this size in 30 years, okay? You can grow apples like this in your backyard, but the ones that are commercially available are twice this big, okay? That's how big apples used to be, I think, when we grew up, but they're bigger, and I don't know how they got bigger. I don't want to know how they got bigger, but they're bigger. So when you have a big, juicy red apple, you're probably having 2 servings, okay? So when you think of fruit, okay, generally, you know, cut up fruit, berries, apples, bananas, things like that, think about the size of what a tennis ball would be. That's a serving, okay? So if you're going to have 3 or 4 servings of fruit over the course of your day, if you have 1 big apple, you've had 2 of your 4 servings, okay? Vegetables, same sort of idea, except raw leafy vegetables. So lettuces, spinach, things like that. If you dice all that up, about 2 cups of a leafy vegetable is considered a serving. So 2 tennis balls, okay? Otherwise, if it's cooked, if it's chopped, 1 cup, half a cup if it's canned, sort of cooked down. And again, probably mostly because a lot of the water's been driven off. So in terms of raw leafy vegetables, you get 2 tennis balls. 1 raw vegetable, you get 1 tennis ball. And if it's cooked, you get about half a tennis ball, okay? So just to kind of give you a sense. And again, if you're going to go overboard in the fruit and vegetable department. And then dairy products. When we say dairy, cheese, butter, some of those kinds of things, that stuff calorically adds up super quick. And if you want to think about cheese, and again, they have nice cheese out there at lunch every day, think of what the size of a domino is, okay? 2 dominoes, okay? So they're thin and fairly small, is a cheese serving, okay? And again, that adds up kind of quick. Milk or yogurt, a cup is considered a serving. So just to give you a sense, obviously a little more calorie laden, so you don't get as much for your serving. And then meat and beans, and I think, again, a lot of analogy people are comfortable with. A deck of cards is a serving of meat. And similar analogy about what fits in your palm. So if you're going to have a serving of salmon or chicken or beef, a serving is about 3 to 4 ounces. So I think everyone's comfortable with what a deck of cards looks like. It also, you can analogize it to the size of the palm of your hand, okay? That's a serving. If you're allowed 2 servings a day of meat or fish, once you've had 2 decks of cards, you're done. And again, people tend to load up on it, men especially. I think it's more satisfying, it's more filling, stays with you longer. But again, high in fat, saturated fat, more caloric laden. All right, so just as a kind of brief run through, kind of hits a few key points. Again, there are semesters of information taught on this, but hopefully just to give you a couple of key things to work on. Again, none of it extremes. I think everybody has their moments of indulgence, but as with all things, you get back on track and you keep heading forward. And again, if you try and stick by those principles in general, it all kind of pans in the end. And I think if I had to pick any one of those things that I think our society struggles with, it's portion control. And that's because we don't get a lot of help in the supermarket department, in restaurants, in the way we're served food. I think everything discourages good portion control. So anyway, any questions that you guys have? Anything that you're wondering about? Again, I don't think there's any food that I would say is bad fare. And I didn't get into a lot about trans fats, mostly because those have pretty much, if you live in modern metropolitan areas, have been ridded of our foodstuffs. Most of the fast food restaurants that used to cook with a lot of trans fats pretty much have been eliminated. So unless you get into the real old-fashioned junky food, almost everything nowadays is labeled, trans fats 0. It's almost kind of hard to find things that are high in trans fats. So I didn't get into it too much. All right. All right, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming. Yeah, appreciate it.